Live, love, and lead. Live exemplarily, love authentically, and lead relationally. Because when you live exemplarily, you influence. When you love authentically, you transform. And when you lead relationally, you find a following. You are very welcome to the Inspired Family Leader Program, episode 64, by God's grace. A program that seeks to challenge, to equip, and also to encourage men to expand their family leadership capacity for national transformation. Here with you, Samuel A. Bakutana, your host, a certified executive coach, an award-winning leadership consultant, a global speaker and author, the CEO of Inspired Leaders International, and the provincial president of the Fathers Union. It's a pleasure to have you. I would say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are watching us from around the world. Did you know that among the top 10 marriage problems around the world, out of research, number one is poor or no communication? And did you know that the top 10 marriage solutions all over the world, number one is effective communication? So communication is the number one problem in marriage, and it is the number one solution in marriage. In other words, when you see a marriage that is hitting the rock, it often has something to do with how they have been communicating with one another. And if you want to put things right, again, communication is a good point where you can start from to put the marriage together. It's an amazing fact. And so today we are going to be talking about a critical topic around that. We want to talk about communication for marriage intimacy. So how do you communicate in such a way that there is intimacy in your marriage, or that the intimacy in your marriage keeps getting better and warmer and more beautiful and more relatable and more... Add any positive word that you love, that you want to see in your marriage. To have that conversation with me and you, our dear viewers, is an awesome father, a wonderful husband, a fellow friend, fellow leader of the men's ministry, Mr. Robbie Gensi, who happens to be the Global Food Systems Advisor at Self-Help Africa. Robert, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much.
How have you been?
I've been well.
You keep getting stronger, looking healthier every passing year.
Thank you. Thank you very
Honestly,
much.
ever since I met you at St. Francis a few years ago,
Yeah.
you keep looking stronger, healthier. Is it something to do with these food systems we've had?
It's the grace of God.
But the grace of God is available to everybody. How come not everybody looks like the way
It's
you
the
look
favor. Unmerited favor.
Then I think the favor, well, you could say unmerited, but maybe sometimes it is triggered by a few things. Probably what we are talking about today could be one of those triggers of the favor.
Maybe.
So you're very welcome to this program.
Thank you very much.
You know how much I have longed to have you on this program over the last couple of months. I'm glad that finally we are able to come and have this conversation.
It's humbling.
Yes. So I would like you to go right ahead and introduce yourself to our viewers.
Okay. Thank you very much, viewers. My name is Robbie Gensi. I'm married to Prosi Gensi Chomohendo, beautiful wife. Mm-hmm. We serve God in marriage, and we are looking after 4 adult children and 2 babies. The last one is 3 years, and first one is 29. God has been gracious to us, and I've been involved in the Fathers Union ministry at St. Francis Chapels for a couple of years.
At Makerere University.
At Makerere University, and I'm privileged and humbled to be here.
You're very welcome. Something to do with the work you do?
Yes, I work with an Irish NGO. It's called Self Help Africa. Their food systems global advisor, supporting different countries in developing innovative in food systems and enterprising food chains that really bring improved livelihoods for the communities, the rural communities, especially those we call the last mile communities.
The last mile?
Yes.
Okay. Who is taking care of the first mile?
The first miles are like you.
Yeah. So he's taking care of me.
So we take care of the last mile communities.
All right. Maybe even sometimes through the first mile people. Well, it's an awesome opportunity to have you today on air as we talk about communication for marriage intimacy.
Yeah.
You've said your firstborn is 29 years.
Yes.
So are you saying you've been married for about that time?
Yes. More than that.
Okay.
Yes. Cumulatively.
Yes.
I've been married for 26 years.
Okay.
My wife went to be with the Lord, and then I got some time off.
Yes.
Then I got married again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. We thank God for the blessing of the womb.
Amen.
These wonderful children.
Amen.
Yeah. So marriage. Let's begin from there because we are saying communication for marriage intimacy. What is marriage, Robert?
Yes. Well, marriage.
We used to know it, but these days I'm not sure we
absolutely.
are sure.
And it's very, very important that we start from the basic principles.
Yes.
Fundamental principles. One, it is God-given. 2, it is voluntary. 3, it is sexual. But also, it is a social order, union of a man and a woman. And let me just explain a little bit that it is a female and a male, because these days you can find a man and he decides to say I'm a woman, and you can find a woman, she decides to say I'm a man. So it has to be a female with a male.
Yes.
Union for the purpose of serving God.
Okay.
And that gives us the scope and the kind of landscape that we should expect marriage to be. So beyond that, it is not marriage, and before that, that is the playing field.
You're shaking tables right now.
Yes.
And those tables have some drinks on top. I hope you're not spilling some drinks in people's homes, calling some partnerships not marriage in their own outlook.
Yes.
So you're saying marriage is a God-given, voluntary, sexual, social order or union between a male and a female, man and woman, for the purpose of serving their Creator.
Yes.
Allow me open the Pandora box a little bit here. When you say for the purpose of serving God, how about that man who is watching us right now and actually doesn't believe in God and is now married, a man and a woman, and they are having a good time in their marriage, but they don't believe in God, they don't serve Him? Are you saying that invalidates their marriage? It's a marriage.
It's precisely that. If a marriage happens and its purpose is not to serve God, then it is invalid. It is as simple, but as cut out as that.
Would it make it invalid, or maybe it would only make it unguided, purposeless, irrelevant in the kingdom? I thought as long as the man has come together with the woman, it is marriage. Whether they are serving God or they are still serving the devil, whichever.
As long as the two do not serve God, then it is invalid.
You have made a very monumental statement.
Yes,
and if some people were here physically, you would be now in hot soup.
Absolutely. And that is what we need to be able to say and not sugarcoat things. And I mean, we need, you see, today truth is relative.
Yes.
There is a lot of, one can sleep and hatch an idea and go with an idea and talks about it authoritatively. But the only authority is the Bible.
Even for a Muslim?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the only authority. And we need to be able to clearly articulate that to anybody who would want to listen.
Okay.
And it is as precise, as simple, and clear as that.
And as disturbing to some people as it is.
There are no gray areas.
Okay.
That is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love the firmness with which you're speaking about this particular issue.
Absolutely. We need to be able to speak about it.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, I mean, many things can go wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, especially this generation that is growing around this time, they are bombarded with a lot of relativism, so we call it. And we need to be able to tell the truth and nothing but the truth about what this is.
Okay.
And it is just plain, simple, and clear.
Okay, I hear you. So we now have the basic fundamental understanding of what marriage is, according to how we are going to be talking about it on this program today.
Absolutely.
Right.
If you don't believe in God,
yes,
you are likely to have a problem, because marriage is actually God's idea. It is not like somebody hatched it and no, it's God's idea, and it relates back from Genesis chapter 2, when God, is creating everything, and he has created man, and he has breathed life into the man, and out of his own wisdom and power, he says, I think this gentleman needs a helper. And that is the fundamental origin of marriage.
all right.
And it is that.
You are a global food systems advisor for Self-Help Africa.
Yes.
Such an awesome and powerful, intimidating sounding title. Global Food Systems Advisor. Do you also get intimate with your wife?
Oh, absolutely.
I thought those are for people who are not busy, who are not seriously in professional work. Those things are for those who have time to just be there at home, learning how to be intimate.
Not at all. You see, what you value, you give it time.
What you value, you give it time.
Yes. If you value your relationship, you will give it time.
Yes.
If you value your job, you will
give it time. Yes.
It's a measure of your time is actually a measure of how much value you put into something.
It's a measure of your priorities.
Absolutely.
Now, talking about intimacy, here is the reason why I talked about it. You see, our topic today says communication for marriage intimacy.
Yes.
And we have just explained what marriage really is. Let's get to intimacy. Briefly, what is marriage intimacy?
Marriage intimacy is that feeling of connectedness, emotionally, intellectually, physically, socially. You feel that very strong bond of connection and support.
Yes.
With your spouse.
Okay. So a feeling of connectedness.
Yes.
Some people would even call it chemistry, that there is some chemistry. Somebody saw someone
now
else
that
and
is
said,
the physical.
oh, that's the physical.
That is the physical.
Okay.
beyond the physical, there is the social connectedness, there is the intellectual connectedness, the emotional connectedness.
Yes.
All those they make up the intimacy.
Maybe to help our viewers to get this really seriously, let's get to those areas. For example, when I said chemistry, you said that's physical connectedness.
Yes.
Maybe talk about that physical connectedness just a little bit briefly.
Okay. The physical connectedness is really the sexual relationship.
All right. Okay.
That you would have.
Okay.
The touches, the hugs, the kisses, and all that.
All right. I get it.
In a marriage setting.
In a marriage setting. You've said it with a lot of energy.
Absolutely.
In a marriage setting.
In a marriage setting.
Okay. Then the intellectual connectedness.
The intellectual connectedness is the learning that you get from your spouse.
Oh.
For example, I used to be a very, very bad cook, but now I prepare chapati very, very, very well. Vegetable
of
chapati.
all the things you've loved in preparing chapatis there.
I learned it from my wife. So she taught me how to make those vegetable chapati.
Okay, and I think this would also go to the ability to have good conversations together. That's also intellectual connectedness.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because
it's
I'm
something
told
that you learn from your spouse.
Okay.
If you are humble enough, you will surely learn something.
Of course. Of course. And then the emotional connectedness?
The emotional connectedness is the way you connect through real life. You have the pains, you have those problems,
yes,
those highs, those lows, and you are able to share them very, very, freely, without fear of, he will laugh at me, or she will laugh at me, or she will rebuke me. It is that feeling of, freedom, to share with everybody. In real life, people put on masks.
They do.
People put on masks. I can come and laugh and smile, but inside
you're bleeding.
I have some pains.
You're bleeding.
But emotional connectedness with your spouse is supposed to be, where you open up to everything.
Okay.
That is bothering you in your heart. That is your fears, your triumphs, everything.
All right.
Yeah.
So in other words, when I think about marriage intimacy, I should actually think about 3 words: connectedness, bonding, and support of one another. Absolutely. So what makes this important in a marriage? This marriage intimacy, what makes it important?
What makes that important is that you will feel trusted. You will build trust. You will build openness. You will build transparency. You can share with your spouse anything about your life, and you will know that he or she will receive you. You will not have anything to hide.
Yeah.
And so there is that freedom. There is that freedom that you get when you have that very strong bond of intimacy. And actually the strength of a marriage relationship is measured by the strength of that bond, of that intimacy bond. And that is really what builds it. It's what makes it thrive.
It's not measured by the type of car they drive together.
Absolutely not.
Or the big house they sleep in.
Absolutely not. It's how strong are you connected?
Yes.
Emotionally, intellectually, socially, Yeah.
Wow. So when this marriage intimacy is there, then there is trust. Then there is transparency in their conversations. There is openness in their living together. There is freedom to share, freedom to live life together.
Absolutely.
I recently saw, when you talked about that, I remembered I recently saw a gentleman and his wife. We were at some function of married people in this season that we just got done with, St. Peter's celebrations. And the man stood up to speak and, tried to speak with energy and smile and then call the wife. But you could look at the wife and see that this wife is not amused. You could see that there is no connection. You could see that the man was somehow trying to compensate for what lacks by being very verbose and speak about many things. But honestly speaking, I could see a wife that lacks peace. I could see a wife that looks like she has sorrows in her life. I could look. There was no connection, simply put. So there was no freedom. I would add, therefore, and say where intimacy is, there will be emotional hygiene, indeed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Powerful. So now, again, our topic is communication for marriage intimacy. We have understood marriage. We have understood marriage intimacy.
Yeah.
What is authentic communication in marriage?
So, when we talk about authentic communication, we are talking about your ability to listen to your spouse. Not necessarily talk to your spouse, but listen to your spouse. Understand what your spouse's feelings are. Be able to respond with appropriateness. And then also be able to communicate such that they understand you. So there is an aspect of you being able to understand the other person's, communication. What he or she is talking to you. It is not the word count that matters.
It's not a number of words you say.
Some people are generally quiet.
Yes.
In 1 hour he or she can talk, 3
words.
And there is a misconception that these are poor communicators. No, I know you are an expert in public speaking and communication.
Thank you for the compliment. Right now we are running the 37th intake of the certificate in public speaking and presentation mastery.
Yes. Now in marriage, that's a little bit different. It is not the word count.
Yes.
It's not how fluent you are or how eloquent you are. It is about how you are able to understand the other person's feelings.
Wow.
And respond appropriately to those feelings.
So it's not just about what you keep saying, but how you understand and how you respond.
Absolutely. Effective communication means that you effectively respond to the other person's feelings. I can come and keep quiet, but still I'm communicating.
Silence is communication.
Absolutely. I can come and, someone can come and, just keep quiet and not say any word.
Yeah.
But still, that is communication.
In other words, their silence is noisy.
Absolutely. It reflects what is in their mind. Now, for you as a spouse, you need to be able to know, even with that silence, what is behind that. Now, that is how you develop that effectiveness in communicating.
So, authentic communication, when it comes to the marriage environment, is an ability. To put it short, it's a capacity. Absolutely. It is an ability. But an ability to do a number of things. An ability to listen to your spouse. It is an ability to understand your spouse's feelings. It is an ability to respond to them appropriately. Yes. It is an ability to communicate clearly so that they understand you. Yes. It's an ability. And I think for me that gives me hope. You know why? Because when we say an ability, To me, it sounds like it is something I can learn.
Absolutely.
I won't say, for example, you didn't say it is a talent of listening to your wife, or it is a natural gift of understanding your spouse's feelings. No, you've called it an ability. So somebody can acquire it, somebody can learn it,
Yeah.
somebody can get better at it, somebody can master it, which gives me hope.
Absolutely.
I am only a little bit curious here. Yes, we've talked about what authentic communication in marriage is. But is it that important? Why is this important in building a marriage?
Oh, it is critically important. In fact, it is probably called the bloodline of a healthy relationship. Without communication, it's very difficult, to build a very strong marriage bond.
Yes.
So it's very, very important that you learn how to communicate. You learn how your spouse is able to communicate. And once you master that, then your chances of building a strong bond of your marriage is really, really high.
Yeah.
So it builds, it strengthens the marriage bond. It brings in that trust that you may not get anywhere else. In fact, one professor wrote and said that marriage is that gospel of grace. In marriage you learn forgiveness. You learn what it means to be forgiven.
You better add the patience. You also learn patience.
But you also learn how to forgive. So
Yes.
it's really grace. And it is very, very important that
Yes.
you look at it that way. If you don't forgive and learn the art of forgiving and not being able to forgive, and you don't accept the forgiveness
given to you,
then you are going to really struggle.
the marriage is going to be a volcanic eruption soon. This is serious. So authentic communication, really, you call it the bloodline.
Yes.
Indeed, I think some marriages need a blood transfusion on this. It's the lifeline of the marriage.
Yeah.
It strengthens the bond. It builds trust.
Yes.
And for me, when you said this, I started to feel like I think authentic communication, therefore, is what rekindles the marriage spark that can often, fluctuate in marriage with time, with age.
Absolutely.
It's a rekindler
Yes.
of the spark in marriage.
Yeah.
And I see this when sometimes I have some serious time with my wife. Maybe we take some 2 or 3 hours off to just look at each other and talk and chat and share many things. I mean, after that, we feel so connected to each other and with one another more than before we started the conversation. So I think when you talk about the lifeline, the bloodline of the marriage, strengthening the bond, building the trust, I see that will
Yes.
light
Yes.
a new spark in the relationship.
In fact, just to add that, most of the problems that happens in marriage, many of them can be traced to lack of communication. Maybe 80% can be traced to poor communication.
About 80% of the problems in marriage
Yes.
are as a result of poor communication.
Poor communication.
We are going to take a break. And when we come back, we are going to get to understand how that happens. How does it happen that about 80% of the problems in most marriages that we see is as a result of poor communication? So when we come back, we are going to talk about what destroys authentic communication in marriages. We will look at how one can learn that new ability to communicate effectively and authentically and build the intimacy in marriage. I'm even right now curious, if I do all these things and my spouse doesn't respond, what happens? So let's take a break, just a little moment, and then we will be back. This is the Inspired Family Leader Program with Samuel A. Bakutana talking about communication for marriage intimacy. Live, love, and lead. Welcome back. This is the Inspired Family Leader Program with Samuel A. Bakutana, your host. And today, in studio, I am with Mr. Robbie Gensi, the Global Food Systems Advisor at Self-Help Africa. We are talking about communication for marriage intimacy. We have seen in the first segment of this conversation that marriage is a God-given, voluntary, sexual, social order or union between a man and a woman for the purpose of serving their Creator. We've understood that intimacy is that feeling of connectedness, bonding, and support that can happen at different levels: the emotional, the social, the intellectual, the physical, to mention but a few. And we've said that that intimacy, that connectedness, is critical because it builds trust, it increases transparency, it gives freedom to your spouse, thereby giving both of you emotional hygiene. We've therefore understood that for that to happen, we need authentic communication, which is that ability to listen to your spouse, to understand their feelings, respond to them appropriately, and communicate clearly. This is important because it is the lifeline of marriage, since it strengthens the bond, builds the trust, and rekindles the spark. When we were breaking off, our guest today made a powerful statement that about 80% of marriage problems come from poor communication. I come to you, Robert, this wonderful evening. Now that 80% of these marriage problems come from poor communication, I would like you to share with us what tends to destroy that authentic communication in most marriages. What are the busters? Those things that bust effective and authentic communication in marriage relationships?
At the heart of any poor communication struggle or problem is selfishness. If you analyze any pains, any strifes that happen in a marriage relationship, at the heart of all that is selfishness.
Wishing yourself alone well.
Yes, and there is, a new thinking that, marriage is supposed to make me happy. If it doesn't make me happy, I quit. Which is half the truth.
Oh, I'm glad you said there is some truth in it.
Oh yes.
Because I was getting ready to fight, Robert. Saying I wanted to ask, so is marriage supposed to make me sad?
It is a twisted truth.
Okay, it is half a truth.
It is half.
So if marriage being there to make me happy is half the truth, tell us the full truth.
The truth is, you are supposed to be happy after you've worked on the marriage. It is happiness is a product of the marriage, and it is not. You don't go there expecting that I am supposed to be happy. You invest.
I think I get you. So in other words, happiness in a marriage is a result of a well-nurtured marriage.
Absolutely.
So happiness is a dividend. It is a return on my investment into the marriage.
It's a product.
Yes. This is a very important point.
Yes, it is a product.
Because many people get into marriage to become happy, not to build the marriage that will make them happy.
Yeah. So they wait. That is the selfishness. You get into this marriage and you wait to receive happiness. You are supposed to be served by the other person, your spouse. Meanwhile, the other spouse is also struggling, to be served. And so there are two individuals who are, waiting on each other,
to do what nobody is willing to do.
Absolutely. you know. And so, first and foremost, it is selfishness. Thinking that I'm supposed to have this, I'm supposed to get this, I'm supposed to be loved, absolutely. You're
Sounds like a sense of entitlement of sorts.
Absolutely. You know, so it is at the root of that really brings strife.
And I think many people who are selfish in their marriages aren't even aware they are selfish.
Yeah, because you have that, you get that attitude that I'm supposed to be served, I'm supposed to...
they are innocent.
And so they
innocently wrong.
They justify,
yes,
all sorts of wrong things. Yeah.
And it takes one or two of their friends to affirm it. You know, they say, these days I'm talking with my wife, but I'm not getting the things I thought I would get out of this woman. And then the man say, so your wife is like that? She shouldn't be joking with you. Now that's like an affirmation of this man's way of thinking, which is crooked and wayward. Or it could be the woman talking to a fellow woman. And this woman says, what? Yeah, you should leave that guy. Why is he wasting your time? So that's like an affirmation to this woman that how she is thinking is right, yet that is not right.
Yeah.
Selfishness.
The second one is being too busy.
TB.
Busy in a court. We had mentioned that, really what you value, you give it time.
Yeah.
So if you value your marriage, you give it time.
Regardless of your busyness.
I talked to a certain friend of mine, who was saying, but Robert, I provide for my family. I buy food, I have built them a home, I have given everything. Then I go and look, and I told him, my brother, your wife needs you. She will not connect emotionally with the bunches of matoke that you bring. She will not connect with the 10 kilograms of meat that you bring.
Don't destroy our foundations. The house is shaking.
She needs to connect with you emotionally, physically.
Your wife won't connect with the bunch of matoke that you brought.
No.
Your husband won't connect with the plate of food you left. It is first of all presence before presence.
Yes.
Too busy.
The other thing is unresolved conflicts. For sure, there are likely to be conflicts.
Yes, obviously.
In any relationship. But if they take long without getting resolved, then it builds. It builds and builds and builds, and it can cause, a problem.
Yeah, it brings resentment, which destroys authentic communication.
Yes. And of course, the other aspect is not being able to listen.
Is it not being able to listen or not listening?
It is both.
Is there somebody who has no ability to listen?
Well, it is a land...
Or it is just neglect of listening?
I mean, you don't even have time to listen. You don't even feel like listening. Or even when you are listening, but the ears are closed. Stemming from what we discussed about, effective communication, we are talking about being able to listen, understand, and respond. So if you're not able to listen, and you're not able to, to respond appropriately to what your spouse's feelings are, then, there is likely to be a problem.
I hear you.
And of course, your spiritual barometer, let me call it that.
Or temperatures, spiritual temperature.
It will determine how good you can communicate.
Are you saying communication is a spiritual gift or what?
You have to be, you have to be spiritually strong to be able to communicate appropriately.
Okay.
Because you have to communicate lovingly, you have to communicate, kindly, and it takes, it takes a certain level of, humility, a certain level of being, fearful to what God has given you.
Yeah.
It is embedded.
For example, looking at your wife as a God-given treasure.
Gift.
You would definitely treat her differently.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, selfishness destroys authentic communication in marriage.
Yes.
Being too busy pours cold water on the marriage. Unresolved conflicts put a wall between you and your spouse. Unwillingness to listen. And then also spiritual weakness or coldness will destroy authentic communication in one's marriage.
Absolutely.
I would want to add one that is also related to these things. I would want to add the word ego. Where you find nobody wants to, they say, don't take me for, and the woman also says, excuse me, I even don't need you. Recently, I was sharing with a brother who told me that the wife told him that. And the wife is a very well-placed lady in this city of Kampala. Oh, so she looked at this man and said, excuse me, I don't need you. Ever since I got my promotion at work, I no longer need you. Ego. So the man also comes up and says, shut up, I am the man in this house. You speak once, I speak twice. Otherwise, I will slap you. So where you find that there are those two people, definitely there won't be effective communication.
Yeah.
That takes us to where the rubber hits the road. Now, I understand marriage. I understand intimacy. I know why marriage intimacy is important. I have understood what authentic communication is. I've known why it is important, and I have just understood what potentially kills it. Now, I feel convinced that I need to work on my communication in my marriage to boost my intimacy with my spouse. How can one learn effective communication to build intimacy in their marriage? Practically speaking, going forward. I see we just have about 10 or so minutes to end the program. So let's go to where the rubber hits the road. How can one practically learn how to build effective communication?
Yeah. That's a very, very good point. First and foremost, you learn by doing. So communicate. Communicate. If you are unhappy, communicate.
Okay.
If you are happy, communicate. But lovingly, if you are unhappy, communicate lovingly. Whatever situation you are, communicate. In one book that one writer said, he said, give short accounts of your life to your spouse.
Meaning,
every now and then, say, I am at so-and-so's place. I am in Wandigea. I am coming home. I am here. I am with Sam. We are taking tea. We are at this place.
wow.
Give short accounts of yourself.
But I am too busy.
Absolutely.
So where do I get time to always keep sending the message again and again?
If you value your relationship,
you will find the time.
You will find the time.
Absolutely.
So give short accounts.
Wow.
2, periodically evaluate your performance. In project development, you periodically stop and do evaluation. So why
even
not
in human
marriage?
resource, we do a performance appraisal periodically.
Why not in marriage? Every week, my wife and I sit down every Wednesday and we ask each other, how am I performing as a husband? How am I performing as a wife?
Do you know how?
What can I do
Do you
better?
know how that question is feared by many people in their marriages?
Yeah,
they
but-
can't dare to ask their spouse that
Absolutely,
question.
but that is where the rubber meets the road, as you say.
Is there something magical about Wednesday?
So you have to communicate.
Okay, any day of the week.
You have to make sure that you give short accounts.
So periodically evaluate your performance.
You evaluate and you ask those questions. Remember, you are open and transparent, and so you ask, how am I performing as a husband? And then she will, if you give her a very good environment, she will tell you, the other time you actually didn't speak very well about this topic. This situation, you didn't do it very well. So I wish we could do it in this and that way. I wish you had done this. I wish you had done this and that.
And when she says that, am I allowed to defend myself?
You
Can I respond and say, no, there you are wrong.
No.
The point here that I meant the other time wasn't what you have just said. Can I get into that kind of a conversation?
If there is a miscommunication, then you clarify. But you do not have to, you need to be able to understand what she feels about it.
So it's not so much about what I personally meant.
No.
It's about what she perceived
Absolutely.
and how she felt about it.
It helps you to actually clarify if there are any miscommunications that could have happened. You are able to clarify at that opportunity.
Not to defend yourself,
Not
but
to
to simply clarify.
Absolutely.
Or sometimes simply take it as it is.
Oh,
No
yeah.
even need to clarify.
Sometimes, you actually might you might have done the right thing, but the way you communicated it
Yes.
might not have been the right way. And so she got it the wrong way. So that is an opportunity.
Okay.
Now, when you do it periodically,
The evaluation.
they don't accumulate.
Oh, yeah.
So when they accumulate, they form a magma and they can erupt.
Yes.
So if you periodically, do it,
Debrief.
you are able to, quell some of those that are developing.
I hear you.
So do periodic evaluation.
Okay. That would help one to learn effective communication.
Yes.
Would, for example, reading like books on communication help a little bit?
Oh, absolutely.
Or watching some videos online about how to communicate in marriage?
It is something that is learned, You
Yes.
learn. You learn how to communicate. I mean, I don't know how many times I have made mistakes in communicating with my wife.
You speak like an expert at it.
Over time, I have learned
mistakes in this area.
I have learned some.
Yeah.
I have learned. Even today, I make a few, but it is a deliberate effort to learn.
Yes.
And so get yourself books, get yourself people who can help you. If you don't know something, ask around. There is a lot of resources
That's true.
that you can, come to and help you to communicate.
Even the marriage mentors, if you find somebody to work with.
There are very many. And then, of course, as you learn the way to communicate, you will learn that, as Paul was telling the people at Ephesus, do not let the sun go down when you are still angry.
I'm glad he said that. Because indirectly he allowed being angry.
Absolutely.
I just should not be angry the whole day, but being angry is okay.
I mean, you can be angry. But don't let the sun go down when you are still angry.
A friend of mine used to paraphrase that and say, don't sleep mad. Before you sleep, make sure you first settle some things.
And when you learn these things with time, you will know when to say something,
Yes.
what to say, and how to say it.
And even what not to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not everything. You are not an angel to expect your spouse not to make mistakes.
Yes. Yes.
So learn which battles are worth fighting.
Yeah.
If the food is burnt, and it is burnt once in 3 weeks. Why raise an alarm over that? No.
And you never raised the positive alarm for when the food was not being burnt. You didn't say, nice food. You say, my wife, get a tip. The way you do it at the restaurant. You never said, oh, this is awesome, delicious food. But now when it is burnt once,
You raise
you,
an
you,
alarm.
you look for a microphone.
Absolutely. So it is slowly learning, getting resources. And of course, as you do that, then you are able to understand your spouse. What are her temperaments? What are her likes? And of course, there are also those seasons when, you know, those biological cycles, when the moods, you know, change. So you need to be able to understand
Yes.
and act lovingly.
Okay.
And communicate lovingly.
Wow. This is we now have where to start from to learn effective communication that will build our intimacy. Learning by doing, giving those short accounts of our lives, you know, to our spouses, periodically evaluating our performance, seeking knowledge, and studying our spouses. Assume I do all these things, and I do them again and again, committed to my marriage,
And do them again.
and again and again. But my spouse really says, I shall not be moved, just like a tree planted by the waterside, I shall not be moved. She doesn't respond. Or let's even say the other way around, he doesn't respond, supposing this is a wife talking. What do? I am doing the best I can, but this is a one-sided marriage. The effort is only from me and not from the other. I have given short accounts, he never does the same. I have periodically asked him or her, how am I doing, and I get the information. The person is not willing to know how he or she is doing, doesn't want me to share with them. I am learning, I am going to seminars alone, I try to get the person on board, bring a book at home on finances, on communication, and I read it alone and finish it. No response on the other side. No progress. Robbie, what do I do?
Okay, maybe two or three things. One, the Bible is a very live book. It's very real. How many times does he say you forgive your brother?
70 times 7 in a day.
Excellent.
But not my husband or my wife.
Oh no,
My brother.
No, that is that is what it is. Forgive and forgive and forgive.
70 times 7 in a day.
Yes. Forgive and forgive and forgive. And then do your part. As a husband, do what you're supposed to do. Because after all, this is God's gift. You know, this is what God gave you. You know, you can pause around and say, "Oh, I chose a very good." I chose. No, that is God's choice.
So also
once-
when my spouse is a problem, I have to remember that's God's choice.
Absolutely.
So that's what God gave me, eh?
Exactly.
What
and
was he
God
after?
and God had a purpose
Okay.
for giving you that one.
Okay.
And that is very, very fundamental. Because, you know, in today's life, you know, there is always a rush to say, "Oh, I'm out." No. I had mentioned that, you know, marriage is a gospel of grace. It's where you learn forgiveness, and that's where you learn to be forgiven.
Yes.
It's where you learn to forgive and to be forgiven. So, forgive and forgive and forgive.
Yes.
And
Wow.
forgive.
And then forgive.
And then forgive.
And once you're done, start forgiving.
Every day, just bring that issue to God. Every day, you give that account to God.
Maybe
Say,
that's a
God.
point where somebody
Say,
reaches
God,
and says,
what
"Let
can
me
I
get
do?
out of this?
What can I do with this gift?"
Lord, I have forgiven and forgiven and
Yes.
forgiven and
Over
forgiven
time, by
and
the way,
forgiven."
God will change the way you are looking at it.
That gives me hope. In fact, somebody said, if you can't change something you don't like, change the way you look at it. And you will start to like what you're seeing. Forgive, keep doing your part, and remember, she is God's gift. Robert, this has been an amazing conversation, to be honest with you. A lot of nuggets of wisdom. And I want to believe that somebody who is watching has picked something to help them. I just would like you to look into that camera and share your parting shots on this topic of communication for marriage intimacy.
I don't know how I can say it better, but marriage is really very sweet. So it is worth the effort. Very, very important, very sweet, and very good. So go for it and just empty yourself into your marriage.
Wow. Marriage is sweet. So go for it and empty yourself in the marriage. Marriage is a gospel of grace. That's my take home. Marriage is a gospel of grace. So learn to listen, to understand, and to respond appropriately. Mrs. Prosi Chomhendo Gensi, thank you for allowing your wonderful husband to come and share with us these words of wisdom. We pray for you and your children and your dear husband that life will be beautiful for you together, that your children will be a blessing to you, that your husband will be a blessing to you as you become a blessing to him, and that together as a family you will be a family that is transformational, that is exemplary, that is filled with the joy of the Creator. To you all who have been watching the Inspired Family Leader program today, let's go and empower ourselves in the art of authentic and effective communication in our marriages, so that we are able to build and strengthen intimacy in our marriages. Because intimacy is what will continue to rekindle the spark that gives you the joy for this gift called marriage in your life. Remember, the moment you don't cultivate the garden, you won't get fruits. You will get weeds. Anything left to itself is not getting better. It is depreciating, apart from land. Go and build your marriage, and that marriage will also build you. The Inspired Family Leader program. God bless you.